For years, this global ministry appeared unstoppable. Its programs reached millions worldwide, conferences drew massive crowds, and books were translated into dozens of languages. On the surface, operations seemed like a finely tuned machine, fueled by a cycle of teaching, engaging audiences, receiving support, and expanding outreach. The financial records reflected this strength, showing consistent surpluses and growing reserves. But beneath the visible achievements, subtle pressures were building. External changes in donor behavior, media consumption, and operational costs began to shift the landscape. Success, it turns out, doesn't guarantee permanence, especially when the system relies on continuous growth. A well-oiled system. For decades, the ministry operated like a well-built engine. The model was simple but effective. Create content, attract viewers, convert them into supporters, and use those funds to reach more people. Television and radio broadcasts brought teachings into homes globally, while conferences and live events strengthened connections with followers. Books amplified the reach, expanding into international markets. This combination created a donation flywheel, engagement-fueled giving, which funded more engagement. For years, this system worked with precision. Revenue consistently exceeded expenses, and reserves grew steadily. The flywheel, once started, maintained momentum almost effortlessly, creating the appearance of long-term stability. Record surplus and financial strength. By 2021, financial reports showcased extraordinary results. Annual revenue surpassed $113 million, while operational expenses remained below this figure. The ministry closed the year with a surplus of approximately $15 million, growing net assets past $75 million. Multiple revenue streams supported this strength: monthly partners, book sales, conference income, and charitable donations. Outreach programs, including humanitarian aid and disaster relief, were funded robustly, reflecting a commitment to mission-driven spending. From the outside, everything suggested a thriving organization. Supporters remained engaged, content continued to be produced, and global impact appeared on the rise. The financial model seemed both resilient and sustainable. Early signs of slowdown. Yet, large systems rarely fail overnight. Initial changes were subtle and easy to overlook. Daily broadcasts continued, conferences were still well attended, and supporters remained generous. But behind the scenes, momentum was starting to shift. Several structural pressures began influencing outcomes, including the aftermath of the pandemic. Temporary donation surges during lockdowns boosted revenue for many nonprofits, but as life returned to normal, giving patterns leveled off. Meanwhile, operational costs, including production, travel, and staffing, did not decline. Gradually, the tight balance between income and expenses began to strain the financial framework, setting the stage for more visible consequences. Shifts in the media landscape. Another significant pressure came from changing media habits. Television, once the primary engine for engagement, has seen shrinking audiences for years. Younger generations rarely tune in to traditional broadcasts, favoring short-form content, podcasts, and social media. While digital platforms can reach larger audiences, converting them into consistent financial supporters is far more challenging. The ministry's core donor base was also aging, relying on decades of established habits. Newer supporters prefer flexible campaigns over monthly commitments. These shifts slowly reduced the flywheel's speed. The system, designed for steady growth and recurring support, now faced an environment where engagement and giving no longer aligned perfectly. The financial swing. Eventually, the slowdown became apparent in financial reports. Revenue fell to just over $104 million, while expenses climbed above $122 million, creating a deficit of nearly $18 million. This represented a dramatic swing of more than $30 million in just 2 years. Net assets fell from roughly $77 million to under $60 million, signaling that operational costs were increasingly funded from reserves rather than new donations. Withdrawals from endowment funds further reduced long-term security. While operations continued without interruption, the numbers highlighted a critical turning point. A system once operating on surplus was now under pressure, signaling a need for strategic adjustments to sustain the ministry's mission. Fixed costs and structural pressure. The ministry operates more like a large media company than a small nonprofit. Studios run daily, airtime must be purchased, and staff and production teams require continuous funding. These costs are largely fixed and cannot easily shrink when revenue falls. Even modest declines in donations can create significant financial stress. While outreach programs and content production remain vital, the organization faces a structural challenge: how to maintain impact without overspending. The deficit is not the root problem, but rather a symptom of these long-standing pressures. Identifying which areas can adapt and which are essential becomes crucial for long-term sustainability. Changes in donor behavior. Donor patterns also evolved. Many long-time supporters continued giving, but younger audiences approach giving differently. One-time campaigns, crowdfunding, and targeted digital engagement now dominate the charitable landscape. Recurring monthly contributions, once the financial backbone, are harder to secure. As a result, the ministry must rethink engagement strategies to appeal to a generation accustomed to shorter, more flexible involvement. These changes are not inherently negative but require adaptation. Without addressing the evolving donor landscape, revenue will likely continue to fluctuate, making reliance on reserves increasingly risky. Leadership and organizational identity. Leadership plays a critical role in navigating structural change. The founder built both the mission and the brand over decades, and few leaders can replicate that influence. As the organization faces financial pressures, leadership must also adapt its strategies to remain effective. This includes modernizing media approaches, restructuring costs, and exploring digital engagement while maintaining the mission's integrity. Balancing legacy with innovation is challenging but necessary. The next phase of the ministry's growth depends on leaders who can interpret the signals from the financial reports and implement changes without sacrificing the values and programs that have historically defined the organization. Possible paths forward. Faced with these realities, several strategic paths are available. Cost reduction, including operational efficiencies, may help stabilize finances. Shifting focus to digital platforms could attract younger audiences and diversify income streams. Reevaluating programs and prioritizing high-impact initiatives may also preserve the mission while controlling expenses. Each option requires deliberate planning and adjustment. The organization cannot rely solely on past models. What worked during the television-dominated era no longer guarantees long-term sustainability. The financial reports serve as a signal, highlighting the need to innovate while protecting core operations and outreach efforts. Understanding the signal. The recent deficit does not indicate collapse, but rather reflects systemic pressures. Numbers alone cannot predict the future, yet they reveal critical trends. When a system designed for surplus begins relying on reserves, it is a warning sign. The flywheel has slowed, and the environment has changed. Financial statements are an impartial reflection of operational reality, and in this case, they show that the ministry must evolve to remain sustainable. Ignoring these signals risks further strain, while proactive measures could preserve both mission and impact for years to come. Conclusion. Adapting to a new era. Even the most successful organizations face moments of pressure. Changes in audience behavior, media consumption, donor patterns, and operational costs all contribute to shifting dynamics. For this global ministry, the recent financial swing is a signal to adapt, innovate, and evolve. Success no longer comes automatically from past methods. The organization must balance legacy with modernization, maintain effective leadership, and align operations with current realities. By recognizing the structural forces at play and taking deliberate steps, it can sustain its mission, continue its global impact, and navigate the challenges of a new era without losing the foundation that once fueled its remarkable growth.